Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Well, to continue. Let's move over to the Times, though, now. Their main story there, they obviously have that picture there of Hurricane Irma, but they're focusing on health in Britain compared to the rest of Europe.
Yeah, this is a fascinating report. It's by Sir Michael Marmot. He's at an institute which actually, you know, they look at their job, the Institute of Health Equity at University College London. And what they're fascinated by is the fact that life expectancy has just done that since in the last 100 years across Europe, and yet it's no longer going up in the UK at the same rate, and it is across the rest of Europe. Like, what are we doing wrong? What's happening? You know, fewer people smoke. We can cure so many diseases. Infant mortality is going down. You know, what is it that's going wrong? I mean, I would suggest it's the whole we eat a terrible diet, people are overweight, and no one moves off the sofa all day, which I think may well be a rather large factor in our life expectancy. But some have been arguing, as he points out, that this could just be we have reached a natural limit to life expectancy, but other European countries, I mean, you know, Japan and other countries like that, they are still going ahead of us. So what are we doing wrong?
Well, yes, and he's calling for an investigation to find out the reasons for it. He has also, it says here, he's advised governments across Europe and Latin America. He's written to Jeremy Hunt, the Health Secretary, urging him to set up an inquiry. And he says that austerity is an obvious candidate with health and social care spending under pressure and real wage growth slower in Britain than...
Well, we've had vastly lower expenditure on our health service for decades compared with France, Germany. You know, frankly, we spend less as a percentage of our GDP than Slovakia does, for goodness sake. So
perhaps that's something to do with it then.
There's nothing to do with austerity. It was the same under Tony Blair.
Let's move on to the front of the Eye, and you have spotted a story which is absolutely tiny, and I'm hoping that you know more than just this one sentence, which they have on the front page. This is EU citizens deported at record rates since Brexit vote.
Well, yes, later inside it emerges this, yes, 26% more EU nationals have been deported from the country in the first 3 months of this year, as were the first 3 months of last year. This year, 5,000 so far have been deported, and the argument in this is, but this is against what was promised to people post-Brexit. We wouldn't be sending EU migrants home. Well, no, that's legal EU migrants. I mean, I don't know what the context is in terms of why these people are being sent home, but you know, there are always people who are, you know, who don't have a right to be in a country, even under EU freedom of movement laws, and I don't personally have a problem with this. I mean, the biggest problem we've got in this country is the fact that we don't actually enforce even the laws we've got. 1.5 million people estimated to be in the country who don't have a right to be here or to continue to be here, and we have no ability to do anything about it, despite what Tony Blair seems to think in his latest contribution on Brexit.
Well, we have the right, perhaps, but not necessarily the ability, the number of border staff you might need to enforce the laws. The problem with this, I suppose, from the other point of view, is that one thing that we didn't have ahead of the referendum vote was a really clear discussion about what immigration was, what the rules were, what they aren't. If you ask the average Joe out in the street whether or not you can deport people from the EU, he'd probably say no, most of them, unless they're particularly specialist knowledge. To be told that actually, in the past 12 months, we've deported 5,000 EU citizens, and that is a record number.
Who presumably were not legally entitled to be here.
I know, but who weren't likely to, but we have been able to deport them because they had broken the rules, even though they're within the EU, that this freedom of movement thing was not a entire get into Britain free kind of card. It may have influenced perhaps some of the, not the vote, but it influenced the level of debate that we had ahead of that referendum, which was very black and white, very binary, very it's this or it's that. There was no grey area, no real discussion of the proper legality of the situation, which is a shame.
Let's move on.
I think the people who are in the country illegally have no right to be here should be deported. I know it's old-fashioned, but, you know,
no one's
works for most people.
OK, this is inside the Daily Star tomorrow, a photograph that has emerged of Paul Hollywood. They're suggesting he's fighting to save his job, they say.
Rubbish. Absolute poppycock. I feel sorry for the man dressed as a Nazi, because number one, this was taken in 2003. Bake Off didn't even start until 2010. Now, had he done this last week, I would have been arguing today that he could still go and dress up for a low party, but it's a bit arrogant, and seeing as he's going to be on telly, it's bound to cause a storm.
So wait,
seeing as it was 7 years ago,
I don't understand the logic there. Because it was a long time ago, because he wasn't on Bake Off,
I'm not
that
saying
was okay?
it's not saying it's okay.
But it's
Julia.
not.
I said that it would have appeared arrogant had he done it yesterday, because he would have known that he was going to get photographed and known that it would have caused a fuss. 7 years before Bake Off even started, he could be forgiven for thinking, I'm just a bloke going to a party and I'm popping into a pub on the way.
OK.
I don't understand the reason
on that. For a start, he wasn't dressed as he was dressed as a character from Hello, Hello, which interestingly so he
was a Nazi.
You're not going to get in trouble for it.
Am I?
Michelle.
I don't have a beret or anything.
But no, I mean, would I dress up as a Nazi for fun? No. However, in a free country, I defend the right of anyone to do so. In 2003, we still probably had a sense of...
We get lots of reenactors who dress up.
Hello would not be commissioned by the BBC today because we have no sense of proportion anymore.
OK, and I have completely mismanaged the timing. Didn't realise you get quite so animated about that story. And we're turning inside the Times. This is page 2, and they are talking about the public sector pay cap, saying that police, certainly, I don't know if it mentions prison workers, I had read somewhere that prison workers might be included as well, may see that cap being relaxed.
Yes, and you would certainly expect nurses as well. I mean, there's actually, again, this isn't about sort of, being, beneficent, noblesse oblige. This is about the simple fact that they can't get enough people to do these jobs. It's funny that MPs got a £1,000 pay rise last year. There are plenty of people lining up to be MPs at the last election, and there's a massive shortage of nurses, there's a shortage of prison officers and of police, so absolutely. I mean, this public sector pay freeze has been going on for a long time. Because to all intents and purposes, a pay cap of 1% is so utterly meaningless when inflation is now, what, 2.3, 2.5% or something. It's untenable, people losing so much pay. And a lot of these people on, average earnings, below average earnings. So every single pound does make a real difference. I think this is an argument that was won by the Labour Party on this one. No question at all.
And you've linked it to a story inside the Mail as well. Union chiefs plot general strike.
Yeah, this is nothing. They've got to try to buy off the public sector a bit, because the union bosses, the people who are on £100,000 a year, not 20,000, and the rest, are talking about, or they allege that they are talking about having a joint effort between more than one union, which I think is actually illegal, to try to bring down the Tory government. Now, I'm fully supportive of people's right to strike, especially with things like the RMT and the safety issues you've got with driver-only trains, but the idea that a massive general strike is going to make people lose faith with the Tories, 13 million people did vote for Theresa May, although she's still in the minority government, is a madness. I think in this day and age, if you had a general strike, you're going to find that people just
and I think
do not support
a lot of private sector workers who've also had pay freezes and had them for a darn sight longer than the public sector workers will be up in arms.
And if they do relax that pay cap, some will call it a climb down by the government. Potentially another climb down is being talked about. The suggestion
This wouldn't be a climb down. This is a massive injustice that should be corrected. To charge young people 6% at the moment a year on their debts is insane. And it should be pointed out that if you are a student from a wealthy family whose parents can afford to pay the fees, you pay your £9,000 and a bit a year up front, and for the rest of your life you've got no debts to pay off, and you can earn your 100 grand a year, whatever it might be. If you're from a poorer family that cannot afford to pay those fees, then over the course of your career you may be in exactly the same job, but you'll be paying back £150,000 because you've been poor and tried to go to university. And it's disgraceful that you're penalising families just for trying to improve their situation.
There was a time, wasn't it, where the interest rate was so low, it was sort of, I mean, the reality is most people don't even pay the interest, pay their student loans back in full. So again, it doesn't even make sense. The universities love it because they get this big lump sum from the government. And then we're supposed to pay it back in loans. So I'm from the era, I'm so old, I got a full maintenance grant, thank you very much. But it is, I think the whole, I mean, I stopped voting for Tony Blair when he brought tuition fees in. I thought it was appalling. The reality is too many people are going to university, getting degrees that don't matter.
Wasn't it?
No, it wasn't. It was Nick Clegg who allowed the coalition government to raise them. Do try to keep it.
Sorry, I thought he introduced them. I'm so young. I didn't go to university. I didn't need to. So
Tony Blair introduced him in '98.
Anyway, this is all about pressure being put on to reverse that.
Yeah.
agency.
But I think
It's
it's
been
great
linked
that
to
the
the
younger
higher rate.
generation, there's always, elections have always been about older people. It's good that they're about younger people.
We're trying not to be distracted by the very gorgeous women
How
at the
good
top
did
of
they
this.
look?
They look absolutely fantastic.
Can I say the Brit ones look the best? Small point, that's me. And the Brit ones have had the least work as well.
Let's talk about the story below. Go to bed early, says a head teacher to teens.
I love this head teacher. She, of course, who's not yet got a school-age child.
Cat's mother?
Really? What
thing.
decade are we in? She hasn't got a child at school yet, so she doesn't understand how brilliant this head is. There's a new head teacher, Barry Smith, who's taken over at the school. Now, he was originally running the Michaela school, which is renowned as an extraordinarily strict school, and basically telling kids, you need to be in bed by 9 p.m, no phones in your rooms, up at 6:30, your phones will be confiscated if they're at school, you need to pay attention, you need to pay attention to the teacher, no talking in class. I love this guy. This is how you get good results.
That's all really reasonable stuff, which she has no problem with. However, he also says some stuff which is so barking mad, it should be the other side of Dagenham. The new rules include walking down the school corridors in single file, accepting
as opposed to 5 across.
Accepting the teachers are the unquestioned authority in all circumstances.
Yes.
Now, I was taught to question my teachers at school because that's how you learn.
How's that working out for you?
Discuss things. It's doing fine. Quite. And it also says that you should not you should only ever look at your teacher, not at the person sitting next to you. Never be distracted.
Julia,
unless your teacher says, unless your teacher says
put my phone
look
down.
at your classmate. The whole thing, there's good discipline. When you've got a failing school like this, you obviously need to impose strict discipline to get it turned around. To get to the point where you're ordering children to walk in a crocodile like they're 4 years old.
Loads of schools do
madness.
this. They've got narrow corridors. It makes sense so kids can get about and kids don't get bullied and beaten up. This is one of the things. This sort of liberal idea about how kids could be free to learn. No, children. You want kids
It's
to get.
not a liberal idea.
If you want to have kids, doing well, they need routine and they need strict rules at school.
And they also have
to be disciplinary.
We don't get to talk about Nazis.
No, another time. But you will have to leave the studio in single file. Thank you both very much indeed.